Trumpageddon, Episode 6. And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. Revelation 8:8-9. We're back from break. Joining us today is Mr. 𝚃𝚄𝙼𝙼𝙰, life-saving hero of the most recent Uvalde elementary school shooting. I really wish you wouldn't use that word, Greg. A hero wouldn't have lost 2 of his own students. I understand your pain, Mr. 𝚃𝚄𝙼, but we may never know how many teachers and students owe their lives to you after your courageous actions that day. We've been chatting about some difficult problems facing America, and I'd like to turn to the issue of abortion and some of the drastic measures Americans have been taking in the face of President Trump's universal bans. I understand that this is another topic close to your heart. It is. As I mentioned earlier, my wife was killed just months before she was to give birth to our first child. A drunk, illegal immigrant stole them both from me on the most devastating day of my life. I don't think anyone understands the value of human life more than someone who has had it so violently ripped from their arms. I am in full support of the abortion bans. Sorry to cut you off, Mr. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗, but we have an interesting development. I imagine you're aware of the so-called Valkyries. Some call them a gang. They call themselves freedom fighters. The studio is telling me that we have the actual leader of the Valkyries, known only as 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗, joining us via live video feed to discuss the subject. Welcome to the show, 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share the truth to your viewers, Greg. Our pleasure. We'll return to you momentarily. Sorry for the interruption, Mr. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗. Were you finished, or did you have anything to ask 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗 on the subject? Well, Greg, mostly I'm shocked that you would have this vigilante on your show after recent footage. I see you're showing it now. She and her gang mowed down a group of men simply walking down the sidewalk. I have nothing to say to this murderer. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗? Very fine people on both sides, eh, Governor? 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗, the rumors of Abbott being replaced are simply that to date. Rumors. Oh, come on, Greg. How many competent legislators across the country do we need to see replaced with orange-lipped sycophants before we know the score? How many more Democrats must we see jailed on trumped-up charges before we admit the game is rigged? He will be governor within weeks, and we both know it. Just like we both know those good old boys weren't just out for an evening stroll. Be that as it may, many are calling your tactics barbaric. Aside from this hit and run, we have seen rape deterrents that mutilate men's penises beyond repair. The rumors are women are getting these so-called piranhas from your gangs. Greg, let me put an end to those rumors right here and now. They are absolutely being distributed by the Valkyries. And Greg, if men don't want to lose their penises in our devices, they can simply not put them where they don't belong. Is that hard? I'm sorry. Is that difficult? Mr. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗? This barbarism speaks for itself, Greg. And there have been multiple reports of this happening to innocent men just out on dates. What if someone's wife forgets she is wearing the device? 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗 laughed derisively. This is so rich. Isn't it just like the patriarchy and its 3 male misogynist God? We have suffered centuries of rape without justice. But a few rapists lose their manhood, and it's, oh, the humanity. Spare me. So you believe in an eye for an eye? 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗 shot back. I believe those words are found in your handbook of hate, Governor, not mine. The way they characterize the Holy Bible speaks for itself, doesn't it, Greg? Miss 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗, it's just 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗𝙗. Apologies. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗. Do you support the Goetic covens that are springing up across America and the world? And if so, is there a particular demonic cult you prefer? You just apologized to a murderer, Greg. I'm no more a murderer than you. Or are women's lives not worth protecting as vehemently as children's? A murderer. Nor I. Folks, please, one at a time. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗𝙗, the demonic cults? Okay, first of all, they are covens, not demonic cults. And America was founded on religious liberty, no matter what the bloated orange blowhard pronounces from on high. Oh my God, I'm sorry, Mr. 𝚃𝚃𝙗𝙗𝙗, We've just received word that the tectonic plate across California and Tijuana has failed, and the entire mass is dropping into the ocean at an alarming rate. No matter who you pray to, let us hope we can evacuate that area before an unprecedented loss of life. I'm afraid we'll have to end our interview now. My God, Gama cried at the sight of the satellite footage on screen. Boudica had already dropped her encrypted connection and was coordinating with her troops to send everyone west to help. Donald Trump had been watching live. He'd heard enough. He dialed his puppet, Senator Cruz, to again press Abbott to resign or face expulsion. It was clear that this Gama Guerra was exactly who Trump would need in Texas to aid his push for world domination into Mexico. And there was no more time to waste. Meanwhile, the guardian angel of Gama's dead wife had finally found a true man of faith. Eliphas peered over the shoulder of the pastor of a small Baptist church in Leander, Texas. He was writing an impassioned speech about the tragedies unfolding on the West Coast and how they would surely all be called to help their fellow American refugees, that they must show the love of Christ to all, regardless of race or political affiliation. Here, finally, was an honest man of the cloth Eliphas had been searching for. But his guardian angel was nowhere to be found. Eliphas shadowed the man until Sunday, when his tiny church found itself bursting at the seams with new parishioners, young and old. Eliphas swelled with pride at the thought of God's hand bringing revival from the ashes of tragedy. This crowd also hosted its share of demons, but they were vastly outnumbered by angels, and so Eliphas remained confident. But as the man preached with fire and fury, Eliphas noticed the spirits peeling away into the sky towards the same demon he had met in the megachurch near the coast. His anger gripped him, and he leapt into the air to confront this heretic selling his wares on this holy ground. "You there! What business have you here?" The demon saw him coming and smirked. In fact, he had followed Eliphas from Osteen's church after watching how handily he dispatched heaven's best. Sabnock was always looking for an angle to manipulate his peers to his own advantage, and he knew Dantalion would have an interest in this anomaly. "Ho, Eliphas, we meet again." Eliphas was taken aback by the familiar greeting and forgot his ire. Hello? I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage, Mr. Sabnock finished his transaction with the last angel in line and shooed away the remaining demons. They never had as much soul energy to trade as the angels. He held out his hand. "The demon Sabnock at your service, sir. How may I help you?" Eliphas was disgusted at the offering and drew back, regaining his anger. "I'm not in the habit of shaking hands with demons or drug dealers or whatever you're peddling here." Sabnock stiffened his back. "I'll have you know, I'm the 43rd demon of the Goetia, Marquis of Hell and captain of General Gramage's army of lust with 30,000 slave imps. I far outrank some free-range angel with no clear affiliation. I'll ask one more time. What the cross do you want?" Eliphas was quite humbled, as he really didn't know anything about demonic or angelic hierarchy and didn't understand why he was ignorant of something everyone else seemed to take for granted. He sighed and extinguished his prideful attitude. "I apologize if I offended, Goodman Sabnock. I'm apparently experiencing some amnesia, but trying desperately to understand what is happening in the world. I thought I understood you to be an accessory of that dishonest pastor in Houston, but now I find you here, changing money outside the tabernacle where this great and holy man is preaching God's word. Is there no separation between the worlds of good and evil, even with true Christians? Are the angels not protecting them as they should?" "And by evil you mean me," Sabnock chuckled. "My kind, I believe you put it before. You are in for a rude awakening, my friend." Sabnock glanced below at the pastor now going into his typical benediction. "Perfect. Come with me. I'll show you this holy man." Sabnock and Eliphas floated into the church and listened as the pastor instructed his parishioners. "Now, with all eyes closed and no one looking around the room, I want you to raise your hand for God's forgiveness if you are guilty of the sin of avarice." Good. Good. The devil gets us all with that one at some point in our lives, but Jesus forgives. And is there anyone here today with a deceitful tongue? It's all right. Jesus has already paid the price for your lies. Jesus forgives you. Is anyone here guilty of lust, adultery, fornication? It was at this point Sabnock pointed at the pastor, and they watched as he jotted notes beside his Bible. Yellow dress, red hair. Flower hat, big boobs, Hispanic. Green, sleeveless. Tall, black dress, in mourning? Eliphas looked at Sabnock, shrugged, and shook his head in confusion as the pastor left the podium and droned on. Come, look into his memories. Sabnock waved Eliphas in. They shrunk their form and entered the pastor's neural pathways. They saw this man of God referring to his list after many sermons, tracking down the women through church records and calling or visiting, sometimes stalking or even pulling them aside on their way out of the church if his lust were great enough. He would charm them and counsel them through divorce. Often his victims had been desperate to save a marriage but lost everything thanks to this man's manipulations. Eliphas left the mine in utter disgust before he witnessed worse. It is like Jesus said, there is no one good, not one. Eliphas wept. Listen, I wish I could help you. I really don't know what you expected. You seem woefully naive, and I don't understand why. I've never met an angel quite like you. This reminded Eliphas of the first demon he'd met when he lost Gemma. Larage, Queen Larage. She told me to ask any demon to bring me to her, and she would explain everything. Queen, Sabnock guffawed. Is she not? She's the newly ordained General of Pride. All the other generals consider that their highest title, but not her apparently. She's crafty. Maybe she used it knowing it would impress you more. We're far from best friends, but sure, I'll take you to her. You up for a trip to hell?